The majority of Black South Africans were excluded from meaningful participation in the mining sector. They were largely confined to unskilled labor, while ownership, control, and the economic benefits derived from South Africa's mineral resources were concentrated among a small minority. Hi everyone, welcome back to SA Mining Desk. Our topic today is how the MPRDA reshaped Black participation in South Africa's mining sector. In this video, we examine how the old mineral rights system excluded Black participation, how the MPRDA transformed the legal framework of mining, how the mining charter operationalized transformation, and how key court judgments reshaped the implementation of these policies. Starting with the mining sector before the MPRDA. Before the MPRDA, South Africa's mineral rights system was based largely on private ownership. A central feature of this system was that mineral rights were tied to land ownership. In practical terms, this meant that whoever owned the land also owned the minerals beneath the land. Because the majority of Black South Africans were landless as a result of historical dispossession, this legal structure entrenched their exclusion from mineral ownership in mining development. Over time, large mining houses accumulated vast portfolios of mineral rights across South Africa's most mineral-rich regions. This created several structural challenges. First, ownership became highly concentrated. Second, the system limited the ability of new entrants to access mineral resources. Third, many mineral rights were held but not developed, particularly where companies chose to retain them as strategic assets. This practice often resulted in the sterilization of mineral resources, meaning economically viable minerals remained undeveloped. The consequences extended beyond ownership. Sterilized mineral resources represented lost economic opportunities, including reduced job creation, reduced mining investment, slower development of the junior mining sector, and reduced economic contribution from the country's mineral wealth. By the late 1990s, policymakers concluded that the existing mineral rights system was economically inefficient and socially exclusionary. This set the stage for a fundamental legislative reform. The transformative objective of the MPRDA. The MPRDA was enacted to fundamentally transform the structure of South Africa's mining industry. Its primary objective was transformation, ensuring that the country's mineral resources benefit all South Africans, rather than remaining concentrated among a limited group of historical rights holders. To achieve this objective, the Act introduced several key principles: state custodianship of mineral resources, eradicating discrimination in the mining sector, promoting equitable access to mineral resources, expanding participation for historically disadvantaged persons, supporting economic growth and sustainable development, ensuring mining contributes to community development. These principles collectively form the transformative foundation of South Africa's modern mining regulatory framework. Let us examine these principles, beginning with state custodianship versus private ownership. One of the most significant changes introduced by the MPRDA was the transition from private ownership of mineral rights to state custodianship. Under this system, the state acts as custodian of the nation's mineral resources on behalf of all South Africans. Companies now apply to the state for prospecting or mining rights through a licensing system. This system enables government to pursue broader policy objectives, including transformation, promoting participation by historically disadvantaged persons. Another central objective of the MPRDA is to expand participation by historically disadvantaged persons. Introduced mechanisms intended to promote broader participation in mining ownership structures, senior management and leadership roles, technical and professional careers, supplier and procurement opportunities. However, the Act itself does not prescribe detailed numerical transformation targets. Instead, it establishes the legal framework within which transformation must occur. The practical implementation of these transformation objectives is carried out through the broad-based socio-economic empowerment charter for the mining and minerals industry, commonly referred to as the Mining Charter. Social and labor plans, linking mining to community development. When applying for a mining right, companies must submit a social and labor plan outlining how their operations will contribute to local employment, skills development, community development, and economic development in mining areas. The purpose of social and labor plans is to ensure that mining activities generate direct socio-economic benefits for communities located near mining operations. This mechanism links mineral development to broader goals of community upliftment and regional economic development. The Mining Charter, implementing transformation targets. To operationalize the transformation objectives of the MPRDA, the Act mandated the development of the Mining Charter. The Charter provides practical tools, targets, and measurement frameworks for transformation in the mining industry. The Charter has evolved through three major versions. 2004 Mining Charter was the first transformation framework developed under the MPRDA. It introduced measurable transformation targets, most notably a requirement that mining companies achieve 26% HDSA ownership within 10 years, with an interim 15% ownership target within 5 years. It also set goals for employment equity, human resource development, procurement from HDSA companies, and community development, establishing the first structured framework for broad-based empowerment in mining. 2010 Revised Mining Charter revised and strengthened the original charter after a government review found that many transformation targets had not been fully achieved. It retained the 26% HDSA ownership target, but introduced clearer compliance requirements and expanded targets in areas such as procurement from BEE suppliers, employment equity at management levels, and human resource development. It also emphasized meaningful economic participation, ensuring that empowerment partners receive financial benefits from their shareholding rather than purely nominal ownership. 2018 Mining Charter. The 2018 Mining Charter introduced a comprehensive framework covering multiple elements of transformation. Ownership. New mining rights require 30% ownership by historically disadvantaged persons. This ownership is distributed across three groups: employees 5%, host communities 5%, Black entrepreneurs 20%. Employment equity. The Charter establishes targets for representation of historically disadvantaged persons across management levels, including 50% at board and executive level with at least 20% women, 60% at senior and middle management, and 70% at junior management level. Procurement and supplier development. Mining companies must procure goods and services from South African suppliers, with significant portions sourced from Black-owned companies. 70% of mining goods to be sourced from South African manufacturers, 80% of services to be procured from South African companies. South African manufactured goods must contain at least 60% local content, excluding profit and brand value. Human resource development. Companies must invest in training and development programs, particularly in science, engineering, and technical skills. Mine community development. Mining companies, in partnership with municipalities and communities, must implement projects that improve socio-economic conditions in host communities. Housing and living conditions. Companies must implement measures aimed at improving housing and living conditions for mine employees, including the conversion of hostels into family units and access to health care and nutrition. Together, these elements seek to ensure that transformation occurs across the entire mining value chain, not only in ownership structures.
Legal battles that reshaped mining transformation. The implementation of the Mining Charter has also led to significant legal disputes. Two major court cases reshaped the interpretation of transformation requirements within the mining sector. The first case was Chamber of Mines of South Africa versus Minister of Mineral Resources and others. The dispute arose because mining companies argued that once they had achieved the required level of black ownership, they should not be required to continually restore ownership levels if empowerment partners later sold their shares. The government, on the other hand, argued that mining companies had an ongoing obligation to maintain the required ownership level. The court ruled that unless continuous ownership requirements are explicitly written into the mining right itself, companies cannot be compelled to maintain a specific ownership percentage indefinitely. This interpretation became widely known as the once empowered, always empowered principle. A second major case followed in Minerals Council of South Africa versus Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy and others. In this case, the court examined whether the mining charter is legally binding legislation or government policy. The court concluded that the charter is a policy instrument rather than subordinate legislation. The court also reviewed and set aside several provisions, including the division of the 30% ownership target, mandatory procurement targets, certain compliance requirements linked to renewal of mining rights, and provisions affecting existing mining rights. This means the charter guides how the minister exercises discretion when granting mining rights, but it does not automatically impose binding legal obligations unless those requirements are incorporated into the mining right itself. These judgments significantly influenced how transformation requirements are implemented in the mining sector. These legal developments highlight an ongoing tension within South Africa's mining regulatory framework. Government policy seeks to accelerate transformation and broaden participation in the mining sector. At the same time, investors emphasize the importance of security of tenure and regulatory certainty. Both judgments severely limit the minister's ability to enforce the mining charter as a self-standing, blanket law. This means the charter serves as a set of guiding principles for the minister's discretion when granting or refusing a right, but it does not have independent coercive legal force. Holders are only bound by charter-aligned requirements if they are concretized as terms of their individual mining license. The courts have emphasized that transformation must occur within the legal framework established by legislation. Where policy objectives exceed the authority granted by existing legislation, the responsibility for reform lies with Parliament rather than executive policy instruments.
We have come to the end of our video today. Thank you for joining us. If you found the video helpful, subscribe to SA Mining Desk for structured explanations of mining law, policy, and industry developments shaping South Africa's mineral sector. Until next time, take care.